Well, all right, so we'll start with our first question, or it's more of a comment too. I'll ask, how many of you have registered with the HUD Home Store? That if one of your, let's say one of your buyers, I'll let Brent read. Do you mind, Brent?
Mm-mm.
And then. Yeah, there it goes.
Ready?
Mhm.
All right, let me
Yeah,
see if
go.
I can pull this up.
You can-
Okay, this is question number one. You receive a call from a buyer. They want to write an offer on a HUD property. The MLS reads to log in to the HUDHomestore.com. Do you have an account? If not, you need to register. What is an NAID number? Before you can submit an offer, you must have your profile set up. Do it today to make certain you have all of the information required. And if you have done it in the past, be sure your information is current. Be sure to read the details of exclusive versus extended. That's like if you're dating, right? You want to be exclusive and extended, I think.
Right.
Okay.
I think I've got the extended covered.
Okay, exclusive is for owner occupants, nonprofits, and government agencies only. Extended is for all bidders. The NAID, okay, this is the number, GLD PRP 3991. And then it's got our tax ID on there. And does everybody have that?
Hey, Lynn, can I jump into something that we didn't think to include in here, but I'm sure, most people have done a HUD here or there along the way. Maybe some of the newer people haven't. But isn't it true, Lynn, that it's owner occupied gets first chance at the bids and then
Yes.
everybody else is after that?
Correct. And
Sounds right, yeah.
This is a very important warning for all of you. You have someone who called you and said, Kristen calls me and she says, hey, Lynn, I want to write on this HUD property. And I say, okay, and I look and it's telling me it's an exclusive listing. And this is a house that's $30,000 in the city and she's living in a $500,000 home. And she's going to tell me that she's going to move in there. Now, that's a red flag. And I'm going to highly recommend that you don't participate in that. Don't try to cheat the government because it won't be pretty. If they find out, that you have to use some common sense with it too. If it becomes extended for all builders, that means they've tried for approximately 15 days to sell it. Because the idea is to help people who don't have money and to get them on their feet and get into a home. But once it becomes extended, then this might be an opportunity for you to have, for example, an investor or something, and reach out and say, hey, I just noticed that this property went from exclusive to extended. Are you interested in bidding? And their rules are, it's government rules and not necessarily the MREC rules. So if you're confused, I'd rather you call either Mary or myself and let's talk about it rather than trying to get by with that, pretending like you thought they were going to move in there, because there can be some serious consequences for that.
Yeah, okay. Okay, it's question number 2. What is the best procedure
Wait,
when you're?
can we go back? Can we go back one? I got one more. On that registration, just want to make sure everybody understands, and Joe, I'm glad you're in here because we just went through this being a new agent and talking about HUDs. But your registration, you have a profile under yourself. The NAID number is the office NAID. You need both. You need that to bid under the company, but your profile has to be complete first before you can even do that. This is a renewal year. So if your information isn't updated when you renew your license time, you're not gonna be able to bid. Yeah, Mona, go ahead. You're muted.
Do you renew every 2 years or every year?
Every 2 years. The same year you renew your license. That's how it's been. Now it might change, but my understanding it's always, it's so a different state, if they're on a different year than we are, they would renew differently. But for the state of Missouri, it's always been the year that you renew your real estate license. So I wanted to tell you,
question I
Jamie,
have is, we used to use a different EIN number per office. Is it now the same number?
It is, Mona. Last year, about a year ago, we went through some HUD, HUD went through some updating and some transitions. And at that time, they rolled all of our access under one NAID number, one DI, and that's that one there. So that is the Benton NAID and EIN number, which is what you'll use to bid, no matter what office you're located in.
Thank you.
So so once you put your NAID and your EIN number in, I know it says Fenton, but then the address will pop in. You're just gonna make sure you change it to your company address. That'll be the only thing that'll be different to
Yeah,
separate.
you get a drop-down box. You'll see it on the right side of the screen.
one other thing I wanted to tell you, Jamie actually went and registered yesterday and she had no problems with it at all. And it did not ask for an EIN number. It only asked for the NAID number. But when you're placing a bid, you're actually putting a bid through their website. Then you're notified when your offer is accepted. And that's when you'll go and then write a regular residential sale contract or special, whatever they instruct you to do.
Lynn, do you still use the Fenton address? Or do you use whatever address your license is at?
You would use Wildwood, Joe.
What Kristen was just talking about before, when you see it pop up and it asks for your office location, you're going to be under that, wherever you're licensed at. That's where you're going to find it.
I don't think your
Okay.
offer would get rejected because you put the wrong address, but we want to be in compliance and do the right thing. So again, they've made a lot of changes recently and we're just trying to stay up to par with the changes with HUD. But I do see an opportunity in this for you if you have investors to keep them apprised of the properties that have gone to an extended status. Okay, Brad.
Okay. Question number 2. What is the best procedure when you're executing a mutual lease?
You're fired.
Go ahead, Kristen.
Okay, you complete the form and send it to your clients before sending it to Lynn via DocuSign.
So typically what happens, I get them on the weekend or at night, and it's not filled out by your client, and then I sign it. And then an hour later, I'm getting it again saying, hey, my client signed it now I need you to do it. So truthfully, I should be signing after your clients because it's my responsibility to verify. I'm not verifying that the amount is correct, but I am verifying that your clients have signed and you have the correct name at the top. In other words, a lot of times they'll put my name as the broker when it's really requesting the name of the company.
Yeah, we shouldn't be sending a blank form for signatures to Lynn.
And often I'll see that they put the amount that they've paid, but they don't fill it out below as to where the money's to be dispersed.
What broker's the last brokerage to sign? Is there a protocol to that or no?
I don't care about that. What I care about is that our side has been signed and executed.
Well,
You said-
Usually it's whoever initiated it, right, though, Lynn? So if
Yes.
you're initiating it to release from the other side, then you get your people, Lynn, sign and you send it off for the other side, but it could come back, it could be either side.
I've already been at the store on the weekend and get a text, hey, I sent you an email to sign a mutual lease, and it's scanned to me. I can't sign something that's been sent through a scanner when I'm out and about. So then I have to go back home and print it out and rescan it. So again, I prefer you send it via DocuSign. If you want it done in a, timely manner. Okay, anybody? All right.
Question 3. You just listed a property and the owner has agreed to pay an additional compensation of $500 as described on line 28 of the listing contract. Because the seller has reduced the price and had to make a lot of repairs, you decided to charge $250. Is there anything you need to do?
Well, yeah,
Bobbin.
you do.
Yeah.
What is it?
There's
You
a
need
listing
to adjust your
agreement.
listing
Amendment to the
contract.
listing.
What was that?
Go ahead.
Change the listing agreement.
Listing contract amendment.
Yep.
Change to 250 from 500.
However.
Otherwise,
I'm
Joan will
telling you-
not pay you.
That's right.
Thank you.
Do not,
There's the important piece of
not pass
information.
go. Do
You
not
want to
collect
get
it.
paid, then do what Joan says. No,
It's Remax Opoly.
Right. This seems elementary a little bit, but it's not because it happens frequently. And Joan will call you out on it, then I get the call, well, it's less, so we shouldn't be, worried about it. Well, the MRC is worried about it, so it's a change in commission, have to do that, okay? All right, Brett,
All right,
it's a long one.
it's a long one.
Mhm.
Here we go. Question 4. Your seller calls you and says, I want you to drop the price on my house to X. They expect you to do it immediately. Can you? What do you need?
At the very
Authorization.
least, you need an email that directs them, that they're directing you to do that.
Right, and that email needs to be from the email that's on what?
On the
The
listing
listing
agreement.
contract.
So if you know they work and you're filling out that listing agreement and they tell you they might have to email you something from work, I would add both emails. If the email
I
comes
think
in,
in this day and age, Lynn, don't you think that every listing should have the email address on there? Because who doesn't work in email form anymore?
correct.
Old
We've
people,
had a few people that don't.
old people. You have to go
Yeah.
out there and they sign on.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
Brent, you'll read that. And then after Brent reads this, I'm going to tell you a story, but he's going to read you what we
Okay.
have on here.
If the seller has provided an email on the listing contract, the seller can send you an email from the address provided on the listing contract. You should never make any changes without written permission. So you may want to amend your listing to add their email info in order to make changes that way.
I'm going to tell you a little quick story. It wasn't one of my agents, but it was an agent that got a phone call from the seller and wanted the price reduced. And the broker gave the agent permission to go ahead and do it because the agent was friends with the seller.
Oh, God.
Dropped the price by $5,000. And the next day an offer came in and the seller said, no, I didn't send that to you in writing and I'm not doing it. So the agent ended up eating that $5,000 because when the offer came in, guess what? It was less than what the agent had reduced the price to. So it got ugly and there was a threat of a lawsuit. And the broker ended up telling the agent, you got to eat it because we would lose in a court of law. You changed it without getting it in writing. So just, I thought I'd tell you that story because it's easy to want to be helpful to our sellers. It's just friendly. We want to be nice, but just remember that story. Okay. Hey, Brent.
Let's see, Creighton, Creighton says never change until you have amendment or listing contract. amendment.
Cover your ass. Yep. Way to go, Creighton.
We live in a CYA world.
Yeah. For sure. Question number 5, on the seller's disclosure statement, survey and zoning line 223. Do you have a survey of the property? The seller checks the box, yes. Later, when the property goes under contract, the seller cannot find the survey. Now what?
Well,
you
number
still have a
one,
Copy of it
up
with your
front,
seller's disclosure.
if they say they have one, then you get them to give it to you. And if they don't have it, then you make them change it. Period. You either get it or you don't get it.
Well, I really don't understand the question because they're asking, do you have a survey? Yes, I have a survey. I paid for the survey, but I don't want to give it to you. It's kind of like an inspection.
Then you
They
should
own
say
it.
no. Then you should say no, because by checking the box.
That's
you're
not
saying you
truthful.
have it. Yeah, and so the MREC, if they would audit that file and that box is checked, yes, and it's not part of that file, that's a problem.
You can't contractually make changes without documentation to support it.
That's right.
Yeah, well, I understand that, but what I'm saying is, if I'm selling my house, yes, I have a survey. I have it right here. But
Well, the
I'll
question.
put it in the listing file, but I'm gonna tell my, hey, don't share it with the new buyer.
If you check the box, yes, it tells you to attach it. That's
Oh,
what
you're
the
supposed to
seller's
attach
disclosure-
it.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
There's the kicker.
It's the kicker.
Lynn called
Okay.
me sir.
She did.
Everybody
We
makes a
kind of-
mistake now and then.
Herself.
With a kind of a little kick to it too.
Mhm. Chat.
Yeah.
Let's see, what did Creighton say here? I'm in the seller's disclosure, unless you have one in hand, it should be no, if box is yes.
That's correct. Yep.
Look at Creighton go,
Great.
huh? Look at him. It's that new year thing. I mean, look at him. He's all spiffy, like fresh 2022. Yeah,
Jamie did the slides for me. I love all her little pictures she has on here today. All right, Brett.
yeah, Jamie's good. Okay, question number 6.
Wait a second. Can you go back to that other question?
Mhm.
So I understand that you're supposed to attach it with when you do the listing and all of that, but if you're under contract, what do you tell that other agent when the agent asks you for the survey? Sorry, you just don't have it, and then it's end of it, or they're going to expect you to buy a survey?
You'd have to do a seller's disclosure amendment and get it over to them. Because what the question says on the disclosure is that you have it and you've attached it.
And if you knew you had it, you should be able to recreate it to get a copy.
Right,
Now,
right, okay,
Unless it
all
was
right.
like 50 years ago and the company's no longer, you should have put that on the seller's disclosure.
Yeah.
Had it, but don't have, no. Don't
Okay,
have.
thanks. All right, just kind of bugs me.
Okay. Question number 6. You just listed a 4-family building. 3 of the units are occupied by tenants. What form do you need from the tenants?
It's there.
It's already here, lockbox
Sorry,
authorization.
That's fine.
Yeah, tenant privacy
But
release.
I'm gonna real quickly tell you a story. So we had an agent that showed a property that had tenants living in the property. The next day, the tenants called the police and said that my agent and the buyer, potential buyer for the property, stole a bunch of jewelry and a computer, all kinds of things. So I want to, when you're showing property that has tenants in it, I would strongly recommend that you ask the listing agent to accompany you. Because I even got interrogated by the police. It was St. Louis County Police, and my agent did, and the potential buyer. And I don't believe that neither of them did that, but it just opened up a huge can of worms. And it's not a fun thing to sit in a room with a police officer getting questioned.
No,
So I'm warning you to try to avoid that situation.
let's see what, Mona had said something on it. Mona, what did you say in your chat?
She said she learned from the best, oh, that was Creighton. Creighton said I learned from the best amount of parsley. Lynn says here, it is our job to review the seller's disclosure to make sure it is correct and they've answered all questions correctly. What is the form number? Are you asking for the lockbox authorization? I will look it up and let you know.
Okay. All right. Question number 7. You're writing an offer on a property that is brand new on the market. The listing agent has told you there are multiple offers. You notice in the MLS that the listing agent has checked yes on variable rate.
Click.
Describe the definition. What should you do if it is marked yes?
Call the
Mona?
agent and find out what it is. A
Mhm.
variable rate is if they're going to sell it themselves, they may take a reduced commission.
That's correct.
Ask if they're writing an offer and they have to tell you.
Right. Also, if I'm gonna write an offer on that property, I'm gonna call the listing agent, ask them if they're writing. If they are, I want to know how much they're reducing their commission by. All right, so that's a big deal. If they're paying out at 2.7 and now because they have both sides of it, they might reduce their commission by 1.7% potentially, which could make a big deal if you're writing an offer on when you're talking, several $100,000. So you have a right to know. You want to fight, and with some companies, you want to know if the agent's writing an offer or if someone in the office is writing an offer based on the type of agency that they're in when they list the property.
Well,
Does anybody
Lynn,
have a
what do
question?
you do if they won't call you back or respond? Because
Okay.
Keller Williams agents, they don't call you back and they
That's
won't
true.
talk to you
Experience
most of the
that.
time.
You're right, and I think it's to a point, Mona, where we actually need to file complaints. And it's time consuming. I don't find it to be productive, but until we start calling people out.
They're bad about it.
discontinuously, They
And they-
are.
And they don't see any downside to not doing it, so they just don't do it.
Mhm.
It's very
Well,
irritating.
I had an opportunity with 2 contracts one was less than the other one. One was the Keller Williams and she'd been talking to me for days, trying to talk me up on her contract. And the other contract was $5,000 less. So I called the other contract who I knew that agent and I said, hey, based on the seller's authorization, if you raise your offer $5,000, we'll take your contract over this other one. And I shot them the contract over and showed it to them so they knew I was telling the truth, because I didn't want to deal with Keller Williams strictly because I have such a bad taste in my mouth. Every time I write on a house with them, they treat me like crap. Just like the other day, they wouldn't come give us another key to get in a house for 2
Tell them
days.
what happened. Would you mind sharing that story about that? It wasn't Supra, it was a regular combo.
Right, and Creighton and I both worked on that particular transaction. I went to show a property. I couldn't get the lockbox open because it was frozen shut. I called the agent and she told me to pour water on it. That should loosen it up. And I said, well, if you use the Supra, it wouldn't freeze up. And she told me I was rude. And I apologize. It was not my intention to hurt her feelings. I'm just trying to show her property. I have a very good buyer that's interested in this property and to let me know. So she doesn't respond to me. The next day, it's 11 o'clock in the morning, still nothing from her. I go buy de-icer, spray it on there. I still can't get it open. I call Creighton. Creighton can't get it open. He calls her. He talks to her. She gets a little huffy from what I talked about. He calms her down. She agrees to bring a new key out. She then tests positive for COVID. sends an assistant, I believe, the next day. We finally do get in the place. Creighton, I'll let you take over. They stage a place and it's like filthy nasty.
Yeah, the assistant went and it popped open. Of course, we'd had a day of rain, then it turned frigid. The whole lockbox was full of water and it was a mess. We tried not to destroy the lockbox, Mona and I. So anyway, it popped open for the assistant, of course, and they put a super on it. Then I got the client in and we thought it was perfect for her, and it would have been, except it had plastic on the window, missing a refrigerator handle, leaking through a window. They had tenants in there, and honest to God, they never even took a broom to the place. I was surprised the staging company staged it. It was nasty.
That sounds
So I
terrible.
told her, I reached back out to that agent and I said, I'm not providing feedback because I know the sellers will see it. Is there something you'd like me to say that will help you with them? Because that's the filthiest condo I've shown in years. And she said, really? That's the only negative feedback I've received. I said, well, I don't think you've even been in it.
Mhm.
So I sent
In the
feedback
story.
last night and I told her it was filthy nasty and our client wouldn't buy it. They should have it professionally cleaned minimally.
So Creighton's asked the question, can they reduce it in right if they don't check the box variable rate? They're not supposed to. They're not supposed to. That's the purpose of that field in MLS. But
Okay.
they've made a listing, in their listing contract, they've said, if I am a dual agent, if I have both sides or whatever, you should be checking that box as variable rate.
If you print the agent format, will it say variable rate or no on that? I
Yes,
can't recall.
it does, and it is a required field too, by the way.
Yeah, I don't remember if it shows up or not. And we always, okay, because we always print that MLS agent format whenever we're writing a contract. So if they went back and changed it, we'd catch them.
Right, for sure.
Good idea.
Hey, Brent.
Here we go. Question number 8. You're listing a single unit in a multi-unit building. All 4 units are individually owned. The owner of the unit you are listing mentions that one of the owners has not paid their condo fees for 6 months. Snitch.
Get stitches.
Snitches get stitches.
It just
Never
gets,
sell a unit in a Fort Condo Association, period.
No, the answer is no.
There is a question, Mona, on the seller's disclosure statement that says, are you aware of any potential litigation? And it happens to be on line 251. And I would definitely put that on there because there is for this particular deal, it probably will have a problem, but also when they're filling out, you're making the request for the association to provide the condo research, right? And they have to put that on there.
Right.
So I would definitely be upfront about it. Why go through the process of taking it off the market? Then they get the resale certificate to find out that they've got a problem. How many days does the buyer have after they've received the resale certificate? How many days do they have to say they don't want it? 5.
5.
People don't pay attention to that. So that's why it's really important to get going on it right away and make that request to the condo association.
Okay. Question number 9. You represent the buyer. The buyer elects to walk based on the building inspection. You you send the mutual release to the listing agent. The listing agent calls and requests a copy of the building inspection. Are you required to comply?
Yes. On the inspection notice, it says if they ask, you shall do it.
Right, so does the contract. So I've had this come up a couple times this past month where we had the buyer and they didn't want the seller to see the inspection. And they're entitled to it if they ask for it, so. All right. This is a long one, Brad.
All right,
This is a good one.
okay. Question number 10. You are reviewing the seller's disclosure statement on a property your seller would like to write an offer. Boxes are checked yes to public sewer and sewer lift system.
Love the Ninja Turtles, Jamie.
So what is this? What is a sewer? What's that say? Sewer?
Sewer lift system. Here's the formal definition, a water, a
Oh, what,
waste
it doesn't really say sewer lift system, does it? It says sewerage.
Sewerage. lift system.
I just want to make sure my eyes are right.
Yeah.
Okay, what is a sewer lift system? Here's the formal definition. A wastewater lift station is a pumping station that moves wastewater from a lower elevation to a higher elevation. And like shit doesn't roll downhill, I guess.
It forces it back up.
We should have known that was coming.
The benefit of using a lift station in a sewage collection system is that it saves a substantial amount of money in excavation costs, which involves digging for sewer pipes. Be sure you read the seller's disclosure statement under sewage.
So
But it doesn't really say that. It says sewerage.
Sewerage.
Okay, so here's something I want to make you aware of, and it's happening a lot, especially in Kirkwood and De Pere. People are buying homes and they're tearing them down, right? Then they're building a new home. The cities have these requirements that the house can't be, so the height, there's a
Yeah.
limitation on the height of the home because the other homes around it are lower.
Yeah.
People are
A
complaining.
lot of times when people knock houses down and then build those zero lot line houses, they end up being a lot taller.
That's exactly right. So here's what's happening. They're building a new home and they're putting a really high pour in the basement,
10-foot pour probably.
at least.
Mhm.
And what happens then, when they go to hook up to the sewer line that's down, it's too low. So they have to put those sewage systems, those lift systems in there. And a lot of them are found in the basements of these properties. And so I felt like this was a good topic because it's happening more and more. There's a lot of people want to live in Kirkwood and they're buying these older homes, tearing them down. And like Brent said, they're those zero lot lines and they're really particular about the height. So we had one of these and it was in Baldwin last month. And I thought the seller had filled out the information wrong. It is hooked up to public sewer, but it also requires this lift system, which those things can go out,
Yeah.
and
Then
this
you're-
particular one in Baldwin was outside. But my understanding is in Kirkwood and De Pere, they're actually putting them in the basement.
Okay,
Create notable.
They're about $300 to $1,000 for the pump. It all depends on what size of pump, of course, you need, but
So Creighton says there's a time in the city was required. Okay. Yeah, because of washer and dryers and things like that. Creighton says you're in deep shit if it goes out.
yeah,
Mhm.
shitter's full. That's
Yeah.
what
Kristen,
President says.
if you'll click one more time, because I did a little research on this and it says there can be an odor, but it's not harmful. And I'm thinking, this is not something I want to get involved in.
No. What movie was Shitter's Full? Shitter's Full? Anybody?
Isn't it a Christmas?
Yeah, it's
movie
Christmas
With
music.
an
Yeah.
RV?
National Lampoon's Vacation.
Yes, thank you.
There it is, Cousin Eddie. He brings his RV and his shitter's full, pumping it into the little area right in front of
I'm
the
not
house.
I will tell you, I'm not an expert on this topic, but I felt it was necessary to have a conversation about it because when it happened, I really did think the seller's disclosure statement wasn't filled out properly. Like, how could you be connected to the public sewer and have a lift? So it's what I'm finding out, it's happening more and more now. Okay, number 11.
You represent a buyer. They call and want to see a FSBO for sale by owner. What steps do you need to take to show the property?
Authorization to show.
Right.
You get the star, Mona.
So what happens if they won't pay a commission? We're gonna collect from who?
Well,
Hopefully.
you collect from the buyer, but you get the seller to sign the authorization to show. I've walked away when I brought it in and with the, just before the buyer, I've left them in the car. So let me get this signed real quick. And I had this happen not that long ago and they said, oh, yeah, we're not going to pay. And I said, okay, we're not going to show. And he goes, you're not going to show your client? And I said, no, you're not going to pay. They're not going to pay. So we're not going to look. And I said, hey, we're not going in. We're going to the next house.
I have a feeling we're gonna see more FSBOs this spring. And I want to make you aware, if you don't understand the process, make sure you call us and talk about it, okay? You should not show property if you don't have that authorization to show.
Well, and you should be prepared that the conversation with the buyers, whether or not they're going to be willing to pay if the seller isn't, right?
It is described in your agency.
When you do an off the show as a buyer's agent, you've got that agency, you know, that's the time to put that on your buyer's agency agreement. If you know, and then you've got the whole scenario if you were an off the show as a transaction broker, which we shouldn't really see those, but once in a blue moon, you have to be aware that, you know, the seller doesn't put that commission, agrees to pay that commission on there, right? Mona, you drive on down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. I just got right back in the car and everybody went, what? I said, they're not paying us. And she went, oh, well, we're getting the car. They couldn't pay it.
Is there anything you can do if they refuse to sign the authorization to show?
Get in the car.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean, other than that, is there any other option?
You have no authority to show the property if you don't have that form signed.
Right.
It's your license on the line to show an unlisted property. So nobody else will get in trouble but you.
I just had a guy, he refused to sign it and he wanted to sell his property, but he refused to sign any paperwork. He said he wasn't comfortable doing that. So I was like, okay.
You can't show it. Yeah.
One other thing I want to mention on the authorization to show, I'd be reluctant to put my buyer's name on there. You could say clients of Joe Camerata. Because with social media being the way it is today, what if that FSBO reaches out to your buyer and tries to cut a deal and leave you out? And it's happened. So that's why I'm bringing that up today. Just be careful with that. Well,
There are a few
clever
of them out
ones.
there, Mona.
Yep. Okay, Brett.
Okay. Question number 12. You represent the seller. You have been asking the buyer's agent for a receipt or copy of the check to no avail. You checked with the title company and the deposit was never made.
Bad.
What do you do?
Get the house back on the market?
No, well,
I don't know.
we just had this happen and I was convinced this was not going to close. The lender ended up taking the earnest, what should have been the earnest money amount, and rolled it into the loan. So the earnest money was never deposited. So we did an amendment to remove the earnest money, and it actually did close last week. But I was pretty much convinced that we were going to get shafted.
Who was the
Doesn't it
agent?
be out of contract if it's not in by the deadline?
It's really a dead contract, right?
Yeah.
If they haven't
Yeah.
complied with the 10-day guideline.
It was some lender that, I don't know, I'm not even gonna call that person a lender. It was very shaky and this guy, this buyer, what he does evidently, he buys these houses and then he flips them in a few months. So he really doesn't have any money. So he's got this lender who apparently does this all the time. So just be cautious about that. But truthfully, if you're the listing agent, you should be on it. I want a copy, call the title company, make sure it got deposited. That's really part of your job. Make sure you have the money. Mona?
But Lynn, you should tell us who this buyer is, who the agent is, so that we have this on our radar. So if we get a contract from these yahoos, that we can actually tell our sellers, hey, this has been our experience with these people.
No, I don't know who that buyer was. I've never heard of the agent before.
Can't we pull the file? I mean, not right this second, but can we?
Have to be a little cautious about that, Mona, because of confidentiality purposes.
It's within our company.
Right, I know. Let me think about it. I want to talk it over with Mary. I'm a little bit of concern about it.
I mean, if
From a
it's a
confidentiality
concern for us, then I feel like then we should have more information about at least who this agent is that is doing this with this buyer.
I'm going to ask
I feel
all
like
to
that we're
proactive, right?
being-
If they say 5,000 earnest money and to be delivered in 3 days, you better be calling the title company and making sure they have it.
So in 3 days,
That
if
should
they
be on
don't
your
have it,
checklist.
what should we do then, Lynn? Do we put that thing right back on the market legally?
You
I want you
can.
to call. Yeah.
If they haven't complied with the contract, you have a dead contract until you've renegotiated it in writing. So you have something signed in writing that says it's still live, we're still moving forward, we're going to remove it, we're gonna do whatever.
Extending it, we're doing
It was just the
something.
whole thing was a shady deal from the get-go.
Yeah. Well, and I think you have pretty good instincts about those kind of shady things anyway.
Well, I think we do too, but I just wanted to verify, I can put that thing right back on the market.
Lynn, wasn't this one like not local? Am I thinking of a different one? Or we'll talk about that later. We'll figure it out.
All right.
That's it.
Oh,
That's it. We're done.
Bad idea.
Rita had a question on here.
Okay.
Any thoughts on those TV ads about OfferPad?
About what?
I honestly, I have seen that ad, Rita, and I think we get a piece of mail from OfferPad about once a week. They're a very discounted broker, and I think they're looking to make a move into the St. Louis marketplace.
I think it's like Assist to Sell and some of the other stuff that we've seen that wasn't successful because, I mean, don't you feel like you want to just put out there, are you crazy to go with somebody who's just blanketly promising something without seeing anything, right? Without knowing anything, without
Well,
knowing.
their ads are so misleading. The woman says, oh no, I don't want any showings. And she says, okay,
Yeah.
click. And then she clicks on it's like.
It's
I
just
mean,
that easy, right?
It's just so degrading,
Hey.
you know? I don't know. It just really makes me mad.
Well, I think it's an indication that we need to do more about emphasizing, don't go to somebody who knows nothing about the properties in your area or what it entails. You know, that's where we need to be marketing more to counter that, because we need to show them for what they are, really.
Right. I think
it's
NAR
kind of-
probably ought to beef up their ads on TV because you don't see
Yeah.
too many of those anymore.
Mona said she's also received emails going out to take pictures on a lead they had. So, we fight fire with fire sometimes, and we have to prove our value. with our clients, with our sellers. And I get a little frustrated sometimes when I see, and it's not directed at any individual in our company, but I'll see an agent post something on Facebook, for example, and they'll say, sold in one day. What does that mean to our clients? What does that mean to potential sellers? That we only had to work one day. So they think that are we losing our value by promoting the sold in one day? It's just something to think about. It might work for other people. I don't know, but the perception to me is that the consumer is looking at that going, golly, they're getting 6% or 7% commission and they only had to work one day.
Are they underpriced it? Or they, all those
Well,
things.
that-
Words are powerful.
That
Well,
sold in
they
one
aren't
day
clear of
could
that.
mean,
It went under contract in one day. It didn't sell and close in a day.
No, that's true. But if you look at some of the social media posts from agents.
But realtors understand that language. The lay people do not. They interpret it entirely different.
One day, and we got paid thousands of
Good
dollars.
point. Very good point. Because what did we do prior to that?
Right. There, we have a list. Brent has a list of like 150 bullet points of things that we.
Can I have that list, Brent?
What's that?
Can I have that list?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We
And
can send
it's
it
one
out.
thing to say another great property under contract without saying, I flipped this one in one day,
I mean, it's up to you. I'm not saying, it might work for you. That's fine. But I think the perception to our clients, especially when they're sitting at the closing table and they've seen that you posted it sold in one day and they're putting out $20,000-$30,000 in commission. It just doesn't sound like you really work. I think we need to prove our value. What all we did provide to our sellers.
remind people of the value and everything you're doing.
Sure.
Well, some clients also want, can you put the sold sign on the sign? And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. And they're like, well, why don't you want to do that? Because I want them to ask me that question. And I'm going to say, well, it's not closed yet. Do you have the money for your house? And they're saying, no. I'm like, well, it's not sold yet. And they understand. They're like, oh, I get it. Why not keep marketing it?
Right, I agree with you. Okay.
They completely understand that when you explain that to them, but you got to make them ask that question to you. And then they understand it, because they're all idiots out there.
Mhm.
Back to OfferPad, I was looking at some of the listings yesterday. I just happened to run across a foreclosure, and then I was like, just fishing around to see what kind of foreclosures were out there, and government owned and owner by contract. Well, the owner by contract was OfferPad, and there were about 19 of them listed in the MLS right now. And and it was just a generic search, and I was just trying to kind of figure out what was going on with them. But again, we're all seeing the ads, we're all seeing all the, the garbage that they're putting out there, but evidently, obviously there's people that are going for it. And, there's other companies too. And the sellers, they come in and, they'll get the seller to, to take care of, or to sell it to them. But then when they go back to market it, the neighbors are just furious because they're not doing anything to market the property. They have a 3-line or a 3-word description of, the property and things like that. So, the more we can get them out of the neighborhoods, the better, because everybody's, and maybe that's it. When you see a house like that, you kind of maybe market to that neighborhood and say, we're not like this company, or this is what I can do for you, so that they realize that you're going to try to promote their property, not just, throw it out there. But the seller doesn't care because they're gone, but the neighbors will.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, good point.
Does everyone know what owner under contract means?
Is it a trick question?
Mhm. No, and you'll see it in the MLS. We saw it a lot during that 2006, 2000 to 2008. We saw that a lot where a buyer comes in and says, Kristen, I'm going to take over your house payment so that you don't go into foreclosure, and I'll make your payments. and and then when it closes, you can walk away. Then they get their money that day at closing, that buyer does. So it's not illegal, it just sounds, it doesn't sound, it does.
Sounds different.
Yeah.
So Lynn, I have a question on that then. So if this is, these OfferPad things are gonna be an owner by contract, so that seller really isn't getting their money then until the whole transaction closes?
Right.
And they
Yeah,
don't
so
know that.
there's two closings that happen at the same time.
See, and
And
I'm
she
sure,
might, in that case, Kristen may have had some equity. But the person who's going owner under contract is going in and schmoozing and saying, Kristen, you don't have to pay your house payment anymore. I'll take it over. I'll try to help protect your credit during this period. And they're it's gonna be a low ball offer, I promise you, because that owner under contract. And oftentimes that was agents that were doing that, which that's dangerous if you ask me.
yeah,
You
the
go to
short sale
court,
time.
you go to court and you're standing there and you're looking at the judge and you're acting like I'm helping her when I walked out of that closing with a lot of money.
Lynn, is that what's happening when you see billboards or something like, if we don't sell it in a day, I'll buy your house?
No, that's different. I know that there's a husband and wife team down there in South County that offer to do that. But if you look at their contract, they will buy it if it doesn't sell in a certain amount of time, but there's a very specific price that they'll buy it for.
Okay.
And it'll be very reduced price.
The fine print, right?
Exactly. When people get in a hurry, they're anxious, they need to sell right away. They've got people chasing after them for money. They get desperate. Desperate people do desperate things sometimes.
Gilman Brothers are doing that as well.
Yep. Walners, the Walners, you see that on their billboard.
They're on television too.
Oh, yeah. They get a lot of listings by doing that, though.
Kathy said they can be called owner under contract because buyer has a contract on seller's property and buyer has permission from seller to market the property in MLS that way, since buyer has a contemplated interest in the property.
That's true. Thank you, Kathy. That's all I have. Does anybody have anything else?
Just feel better.
Thank you.
New Year.
Hey, thank you. Happy birthday to Mary, everyone.
Oh, happy birthday, Mary.
Happy birthday, Mary.
Happy birthday, Mary.
Thank you, guys.